And for further synthesis here, we're joined now from the CBS News Washington Bureau by Seamus Hughes, a former senior counterterrorism advisor to the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Seamus, we very much appreciate the time. With regard then to this latest arrest, we have seen now time and again Americans arrested and charged for helping ISIS. But this is now the first time we have seen the person in question be a law enforcement officer. Your reaction then when you heard the news?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is the 100th person arrested for ISIS-related activities in the last 2 years. So it's clearly a phenomenon that's growing. For this case, we haven't seen a police officer, a person in position of power, being arrested for ISIS-related activities. But, ISIS doesn't have a monopoly on the type of employment. There's no typical profile of an ISIS recruit. It looks like this is a standard case, an individual who was slowly handled by the FBI with the use of an informant, and it played out that way.
We do see, again, it's a person who was armed and obviously with access to, in this case, the Washington, D.C. transit system. It is thought perhaps that with increasing likelihood that an attack here in the United States might take place in a transit system with multiple soft targets provided. How will this change, perhaps, the workings of law enforcement as they look to? You mentioned there is no specific type of person to radicalize, but how is this going to change the way law enforcement does its job with regard to targeting people like this?
I think the law enforcement is going to take a step back and look at this case and determine whether an individual that's in this position should have that job. They haven't crossed a legal threshold, they haven't committed a crime, but on the other hand, do you want these individuals in a position of power? So I think you're going to see the FBI working very closely with local law enforcement to make these determinations. They're in this untenable position where an individual hasn't crossed a legal threshold, but they're still concerned about him. And that's, I think, why they introduced an undercover informant, essentially to control the situation a bit.
According to the research from your organization, the vast majority of people, you just mentioned 100 now, arrested, charged with connection to ISIS, are American citizens. They are permanent residents. When we then hear on the campaign trail talk of the need for walls built or bans on all members of a certain religion, how much water do those arguments actually hold?
When you look at just the ISIS cases in America, when we say homegrown terrorism, we really mean homegrown terrorism. They were born and raised here. They spent their formative years here. It's not a threat from without coming in, it's a threat from within. So in order to determine and develop programs and policies to address this, we have to recognize the facts on the ground. And the facts tell us that the vast majority are U.S. citizens are permanent residents. They were born and raised here.
Seamus Hughes in Washington, we very much appreciate your insights here.
Thank you.